Your right to self-identify. My right to disagree. Who is oppressing whom? Written by Kenny Bomer. Narrated by Frank Block. Chapter 4. The Genderbread Person. With all the pro-pedophilia doctors of the past being responsible for developing gender ideologies, it should be of no surprise to anyone that the target audience of the transgender movement is children. Those ideologies are being taught in classrooms from preschool to major universities all over the United States, as well as the rest of the world. Young people are being indoctrinated to accept the idea that a person can be whatever gender or sex they choose to be, despite their biological makeup. They are taught to believe that they can be a male, female, both, and or neither, based on how they feel. They are taught that they can be male one day and then female the next. They are taught to believe that it is possible for a person to have a male brain and a female body, and vice versa, through curriculum, guest speakers, and teacher training that are all provided by transgender activists. They read books like I Am Jazz and Red, a crayon story, a story about a blue crayon wrapped in red paper that thinks it is red. In most instances, this indoctrination is being done without the permission of parents, who usually have no idea what is going on in the classroom. There are also handouts called The Genderbread Person and its new replacement, the Gender Unicorn, that are being seen in an ever-growing number of classrooms across the United States. Both handouts are widely used throughout the country, while backed by the Biden administration. In the process, transgender activists are moving away from claiming that biological females identify as the opposite sex, to a more radical claim that says a biological female is the opposite sex. They also claim that sex is assigned at birth, and therefore sex can be reassigned later in life. Of course, that requires medical costuming and physical mutilation, but they are okay with that. A statement about who someone is more powerful than a statement being made about how they identify. Therefore, trans activists no longer claim that a transgender woman is a man who identifies as a woman. Now the man who identifies as a woman is a real woman. Their claims are metaphysical in nature, but they try to present them as scientific. They claim gender identity determines a person's sex, and that objective realities do not mean anything when compared to a person's subjective identity. In the process, they are teaching children that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy, or a child can be both or neither. Trans activists are promoting these ideas through the use of cartoon character graphics that they know will attract children. One of the most effective and widespread of those graphics is the genderbread person. The graphics are used to indoctrinate children and to encourage them to question their own gender identities and sex. Graphics like the genderbread person cause them to focus on their bodies and to question their own human nature. It teaches that when it comes to sex and gender, we have 5 distinct aspects of ourselves to consider. At the top of the handout, there's an arrow that points to a rainbow-colored brain that says identity. In the upper right-hand corner of that, you see gender identity, and a quote that says, how you in your head define your gender. That is based on how a person aligns or does not align with what they understand to be the options for gender. The graphic also lists 4 gender identities: womanness, manness, two-spirited, genderqueer, of what it says are infinite possibilities. There's also an arrow that points to 4 little boxes that indicate the possibilities for gender exist along a spectrum. Little dots are used to indicate the spectrum as they teach children that they need to think about their own gender identity and where they exist along the spectrum. Then right below gender identity is gender expression, that they define as the way a person presents gender through their actions, style of dress, and demeanor, that can mean a person is feminine, masculine, butch, femme-androgynous, or gender-neutral, all of which exists along a spectrum. Below that is biological sex, with similar markings that suggest it too exists along a spectrum. Below that is sexual attraction and romantic attraction. The major message that the handout is teaching children is that 4 of those items do not have to match with a 5th, meaning gender identity, gender expression, sexual attraction, and romantic attraction do not need to have a relationship with biological sex. It teaches children that their biological sex could be one thing and their gender expression could be another. It says that none of it needs to match, and that it probably doesn't. The genderbread person graphic is one of the earliest used to indoctrinate children, but it drew backlash from trans activists for looking too much like a genderbread man. The other issue is that it says biological sex, which is not considered to be a politically correct term amongst the transgender community. Therefore, that handout has been replaced in most places with the gender unicorn. On that handout, the phrase biological sex has been replaced with the phrase sex assigned at birth. The gender unicorn handout depicts a smiling purple unicorn surrounded by green dots, with a strand of DNA over its genital area. It has 2 hearts on its chest, one representing emotional attraction, and the other representing physical attraction. It has a thought bubble with a gay rainbow coming out of its head. The handout explains that the rainbow represents various gender identities. The green dots represent the unicorn's gender expression as either masculine or feminine. The DNA over the genitals represents sex assigned at birth, for example, male, female, or other. The imagery of the gender unicorn has been well thought out. It has chubby features and is colored purple like Barney, another fictional character loved by millions of children all over the world. The mythical creature is effective in drawing the attention of young children. The younger, the better. The symbols and the subliminal messages that they generate are radical attempts to peddle biology defying transgender ideologies to children as a form of sexual grooming. Do children really need to be focusing on genitalia in the classroom? They should be learning facts, not false ideologies that deny them. The handout makes 4 primary points. Number 1, there are more than 2 sexes. Number 2, sex and gender are different. Number 3, no particular sex or sexual attraction is considered normal. Number 4, anything and everything goes. Prayer in school is not allowed, but sexual grooming has been added to lesson plans as the study of transgenderism slowly becomes integrated into general studies, alongside math and history. The gender unicorn assignment first came to public attention after a 7th grade teacher in California was caught using it. Its use has been backed by the Biden administration, who within the first 24 hours of being elected reinstated the Obama-Biden guidance revoked by the Trump-Pence administration and restored transgender students access to sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms in accordance with their gender identity. He also directed his Department of Education to vigorously enforce and investigate violations of transgender students' civil rights. Children should be able to learn without worrying about whether they will be denied access to the restroom, the locker room, or school sports, the directive states. Adults should be able to earn a living and pursue a vocation, knowing that they will not be fired, demoted, or mistreated because of whom they go home to, or because how they dress does not conform to sex-based stereotypes. People should be able to access health care and secure a roof over their heads without being subjected to sex discrimination. President Joe Biden. Pro-transgenderism laws are granting so-called trans people rights above and beyond other citizens, while taking rights from people who disagree with their ideologies. The laws give people the right to self-identify as anything they wish and use any public facility they wish, while making it illegal for other people to disagree with them. It is hypocrisy at its finest and a gross double standard. Why do trans men who self-identify as women need to use restrooms reserved for women? They can use restrooms for men because they are in fact men. The only way their civil rights will be denied is if they were not allowed to use any restroom at all. All of these issues have trickled into the classroom because people in power and transgender activists are conditioning children at an early age to accept their ideologies, which will strengthen their laws and ideologies in the future. On May 17, 2022, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Chris Rufo, published a lengthy Twitter thread uncovering the shocking details of a conference on transgender wellness in which Philadelphia teachers were encouraged to attend. Rufo infiltrated the conference and recorded videos of the happenings. Last year, the school district of Philadelphia encouraged teachers to attend a transgender conference on kink, BDSM, transsex, bigger D energy, and banging beyond boundaries. I've obtained exclusive videos from the conference that will shock you. Christopher F. Rufo, at RealCrestRufo, Twitter. Rufo shared several videos from the conference. In one of the videos, trans activist Chase Ross spoke about prosthetics that could be used as sex toys. Ross openly displayed numerous dildos, and at one point he said, "Give me 2 hours alone, and I'll get this in my butt," while referring to one of the larger sized ones. Notice, Ross did not say he would get it into his vagina, because as a so-called trans woman, he does not have one. Another video featured a presenter by the name of Jamie Joy, who described himself as a kinky, polyamorous, pretty big slut. Joy was proud to talk about having organized orgies and exploring fantasies and perversions. At one point, Joy and another presenter, Lucy Fielding, a self-described white, queer, kinky, polyamorous, visibly able-bodied, Jewish, witchy, non-binary trans femme, discussed ways to describe genitalia in non-gendered language by using words such as goodies, front hole, back hole, junk, bits, treasure, and more. In another video, award-winning plastic surgeon Dr. Scott Mosser of the San Francisco Bay Area gave a speech about his experience in performing gender-affirming surgery for more than a decade. Mosser stated, "There is no age limit for children to begin their gender journey." He added that he has done a few consults for 12-year-olds, although most of his patients have been 14 and older. "I do not have a minimum age of any sort in my practice," he said. "There is no chronological age that says you don't get surgery. Having said that, I don't think I've done a consult on a 12-year-old yet, but we would if one came our way." Rufo said the school district has worked with a conference organizer, the Mazzoni Center, to develop sex education programs for students. Decent, God-fearing people should ask why teachers need to be educated to discuss sexuality with their students. What reason could there be other than to groom students to accept transgender ideologies that focus on sex in classroom breeding grounds? It is nearly impossible to see a man dressed as a woman or a woman dressed as a man and not have some sort of sexual thought come to mind. Curiosity about such a person's genitalia is almost automatic, as so-called trans people point out to themselves based on their interactions with others, and even amongst themselves. One does not have to be a pervert or of a certain age for that to happen. Adults are supposed to be better equipped to deal with sexual issues, but children are gullible and impressionable. The transgender community is aware of that, and that is why it is important for the activists to impress upon children ideas that fit their agenda as early as possible. Chris Rufo also reported in a tweet that the Evanston-Skokie School District in Illinois has adopted a radical gender curriculum that starts as early as preschool. Students from pre-K through 3rd grade are encouraged to celebrate the transgender flag, break the gender binary, and to explore the use of the pronouns Z, Zer, and Tree. Rufo was able to acquire the pre-K 3rd grade curriculum documents, which are part of the Chicago area district's LGBTQ+ Equity Week. In a series of tweets, Rufo presented highlights of the Evanston-Skokie School District's lesson plans. The curriculum in the Evanston-Skokie School District is a perfect illustration of college-level queer theory, translated into early elementary pedagogy. Parents have a right to be concerned, and legislators have a duty to ensure that public schools reflect public values. Christopher F. Rufo, at Real Chris Rufo, 4:39 p.m., April 21, 2022. Twitter web app. According to Michael Knowles, host of the Daily Wire, in a speech given at Boston University titled Teach the ABCs, Not the LGBTs, he said liberal educators and politicians, from the local level all the way up to the White House, are indoctrinating extremely young kids into radical sexual ideologies. That is why they are fighting parental education rights in states like Florida, where a kindergarten teacher appeared on MSNBC to complain that he could no longer tell his 5-year-old students about date night with his boyfriend. Why do 5-year-old students need to hear about their teacher's homosexual date night? In response to the Florida controversy, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki began sobbing during an interview as she talked about bills that critics say target gay and transgender children. She claimed that kids are being used as weapons in a political culture war. Her statement was dripping with hypocrisy because Psaki herself happens to be on the side that is placing children at risk. Therefore, her statement is correct. Children are being exploited and used like pawns by transgender activists who claim victimhood while they themselves are guilty of abuse. When asked during an interview with a News Not Noise podcast about legislation like Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which prohibits the discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity in children through 3rd grade, as well as instruction on those topics that takes place in a manner that is not age-appropriate or developmentally appropriate, Psaki started to weep and then said, "This is a political wedge issue and an attempt to win a culture war, and they're doing that in a way that is harsh and cruel to a community of kids." People like Psaki and others in the Biden administration do not see the exploitation and brainwashing of children to be harsh and cruel. They are attempting to force-feed masses of people, including children, the idea that biology means nothing, that it can be disregarded. They are defying science by saying anatomy does not matter when it comes to whether or not someone is male or female. According to them, a person can be both male and female, neither male or female, or something other. That must be both mentally and emotionally disturbing to children, who rely on adults to teach them. I believe anything that causes mental and emotional instability certainly qualifies as mental and emotional abuse. Transgender ideologies leave children guessing or blindly accepting instead of allowing biology to speak for itself. Children have a hard enough time deciding which cereal they want when on the cereal aisle at the local grocery store. So how are they expected to choose which of 100 or more genders they are? During her address, Psaki went on to say the following: "I'm going to get emotional about this issue because it's horrible. It's like kids who are bullied, and all these leaders are taking steps to hurt them and hurt their lives and hurt their families. And you look at some of these laws in these states, and it's going after parents who are in loving relationships, who have kids. It's completely outrageous." Psaki's statement is itself outrageous. It is hypocrisy at its finest. The real leaders, the Biden administration, accused people who tried to defend and protect children of attempting to hurt them and their families by implementing laws that would prevent transgender ideologies from being propagated amongst them. Psaki's statement is equivalent to one group starting a fire and then accusing firefighters of trying to hurt people by trying to put it out. Parents should have a right to say what they want or do not want their children to be exposed to. Parents do not allow their children to play in the freeway. So why would they want their children to be exposed to an ideology that statistics have proven places people at risk of suicide? Trans activists know their ideologies can't hold up to scrutiny. So in response, they claim victimhood, as if others are attempting to deny them their rights. It is their only course of action, because their ideologies implode on themselves. It takes a special type of evil to prey upon the innocence of children, in order to use it as a conduit to push very adult-level views on the masses. The transgender machine is grinding away at the fabric of society. Planned Parenthood has started opening on-campus medical clinics at public schools across Los Angeles, the second largest school district in the country, to encourage students to transition. Unless people garner enough courage to speak out against children being exposed to these dangerous ideologies, more school districts across the country are sure to follow suit. The groomers are right there in the classrooms, and the systems are in place. I have interviewed gender-affirming therapists who would say some kids are gender fluid, and I would tell them, how can you recommend top surgery on a young woman who might turn out to be gender fluid? Meaning, she decides at some point she is wrong, and she isn't a boy, she's a girl. The response was essentially, well, only she can know her truth. She is not medicine any longer. It is closer to witchcraft. Abigail Schreier, author of Irreversible Damage. The only way to combat the evil being used to brainwash youth into embracing transgender ideologies is for God-conscious people of all faith groups to set aside our differences in order to unite and refute the trans influencers who are growing in number. We need to demand to know what is going on inside of classrooms and keep tabs on who and what our youth are being exposed to. There should be no reason drag queens should ever step foot inside of an elementary school classroom to indoctrinate young kids during story time. Gender closets should not exist, and parents should not be excluded from knowing what is going on with their own children inside neither public nor private schools. The private lives of teachers should not be shared with students as if school grounds are social clubs, where anything and everything is open for discussion. Youth should be protected from sin and confusion, not exposed to them. We need to question why the transgender movement is so bent on filling the minds of youth of all ages with thoughts about sexuality and gender. Children go to school to learn about ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, not LGBTQs and Ts. It is an absolute obligation in Islam for Muslims to protect children from evil. It is their right to be protected. That means all children, not just one's own. The old saying, "It takes a village to raise one child," is an especially important concept that people of all social classes should take more seriously. However, adults routinely expose children to their ill behavior, as if unconcerned. Celebrities and people in the music industry influence children constantly without acknowledging and accepting the impact they have on others in society. Skimpy dress, foul language, promoting sex outside of marriage in song lyrics and movies, and parading around city streets half naked in rainbow-colored outfits are damaging not only children, but all members of society. If we do not step up and protect our children now, things are sure to be worse in the future. May Allah, blessed and exalted is He, accept my efforts to do my part via the words of this book, and may He save us all from the fire on the day of judgment. Amin. O you who have believed, protect yourselves and your families from a fire whose fuel is people and stones. Quran, Surah At-Tarim 66, Ayah 6. Chapter At-Tarim 66, verse 6. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The best of you is one who gives a good education, intellectual and moral, to his children." This has been Your Right to Self-Identify, My Right to Disagree. Who is Oppressing Whom? Written by Kenny Bomer. Narrated by Frank Block. Copyright 2022 by Kenny Bomer. Production copyright by Kenny Bomer.